I will do the
Right.
comments for you if you want. I'll check on the comments for you. That will help.
Thank you so much. Evening, everyone. Obviously, the NSS for assignment 2, BMNG 7322. You will be aware that there was a change earlier. I honestly forgot about this, but the truth is that the questions don't make sense based on the description here, guys. So when they ask here into South Africa, that has to be Namibia. So there should have been some sort of amendment or addendum come out. Either way, we're going to answer that as Namibia. It makes no sense in terms of putting South Africa there. Right, has an addendum been issued, guys?
I
Has
haven't seen
anyone
anything on
seen
my side.
anything?
I haven't seen anything on
Yeah,
my side.
I was
I
told it
think we
was
need
on
to
its way, but
request one.
obviously it takes a moment. No, I
Yeah, I
have
think we
done
need
that.
to
I
request
did
one.
that earlier. Yeah. So, guys, this will be Namibia, where it says Namibia there. We're going to look at Starlink going into Namibia, but in particular. Okay. Yeah, I guess then it's just a silly word there. It really is just a silly word. It's South Africa instead of being Namibia. So the silly word that should go in there is Namibia. Right. Let's have a glance at the assignment. Let's look at the detail. As always, I will use my own slides as a backdrop. Those of you that want the slides, I will share it again on the group with the other lecturers, and you guys can grab it from wherever. All right, so guys, the first one here, and it talks about globalization, and we know what globalization is, and one of the consequences of globalization is that idea of free movement of products, services, skills, and finances across traditional boundaries. So we've seen that there was this move towards globalization. In the last couple of years, we've seen definitely a move away from globalization. Yeah, no, silly words do cost marks. We've seen a move away from globalization in Brexit. We've seen that Trump again shouting the idea of going it alone, and China making an announcement that its electronics industry will be fully self-sufficient from within the borders of the nation. So we've seen significant moves away from globalization, and the reality of globalization is obviously being challenged, but it's still a reality that we have to look at. So if we look at the analysis here, so it's about the strategy in terms of coming into Namibia, guys. Now, if I was Donald Trump, I'd say into Nambia, but I'm not because I have a brain, into Namibia. So we're looking at initially the drivers of globalization. In terms of my slides, it's right there. So it is learning unit. Yeah, that's it. It's learning unit 4, and it's slides 11 and 12. If someone wants to jump in and give me the page numbers, that would be fantastic in the textbook. But we're looking at, yeah, slides 11 and 12 from my learning unit 4. So those of you that have it from earlier in terms of the previous NSS, you can grab there. And Unashi is saying 369. Well done. That's 25% extra. I'll make sure that whoever your lecturer gives you that 25%. So when we look at the drivers of globalization, again, with that rider that we've seen moves away from that, the first one would be the General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs and the World Trade Organization, who have as the intentions the idea of the free movement of products and services and skills and finances. We've seen that this has driven the world, and up till about 2016, when the insanity hit, including Trump. I also see that in terms of what the General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs have tried to do, as well as the WTO. Please just excuse. As well as the WTO, it is really trying to remove all barriers to foreign direct investment. And we've seen this trend towards regional integration. And we have obviously the biggest one, the European Union. We have South Africa, part of SADC, and the AU, and we're part of BRICS and the extended BRICS, and all of those essentially would indicate that there is this integrated global society. However, again, with the rider that we've seen changes in terms of that. And then I think for me, the biggest driver of globalization would always be advances in information communications technologies. We've seen in terms of travel technologies also, we've seen significant advances in terms of the speed that we can get goods and services to different parts of the world. But in particular, the internet and the idea of being able to communicate from anywhere with anyone at any time is a clear indication about how technology has driven globalization. And I mean, when we think of other forms of technology, I was just watching Israel being pounded by ballistic missiles and other missiles from Iran, and it's happening in real time. And I'm watching it in my lounge in Pietermaritzburg. The world essentially has changed, and it's a different way of doing things. Nate will try and do that again and help with the assignments, okay? Guys, and then those drivers there, additional drivers. We know that we've got trade blocks, SADC, the one example, free trade areas. I would imagine the European Union and other examples of it, and whatever has replaced NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. I know it has a new name, but it sticks as NAFTA, that arrangement between Mexico, America, and Canada. And then multinationals, guys. When we think of multinationals, we think of these behemoths. And when we look at the stats around multinationals, the reality is that if we look at the world's 100 biggest economies, 70 of those, in fact, 69 of those are big business. So when we look at the 100 wealthiest economies globally, more than two-thirds are big businesses. So a place like Microsoft and a place like Apple and a place like Google could buy themselves several countries in terms of what they generate from an income perspective. We've also seen the amount of money invested in research and development, and in terms of getting the money back, that initial investment back, it takes a lot of time and energy, which becomes a lot easier when you're selling your product globally because you have so many more customers. We've also seen the idea of cultural homogenization, where a teenager in Tokyo looks exactly, in terms of dress and brands, etc., than a teenager in Johannesburg who looks exactly very in terms of being when compared with a teenager in London. And then, the idea of the modern world, and where we're able to share ideas, we're able to share learning, and where we're able to share products and services across the globe. And in all of this, every country has to find their own little niche. Every country has to sort of make what would be considered their competitive advantage. So in terms of globalization, we design in Germany, we build in China, and we market in America. And it's always interesting when we look at Africa, what is our competitive advantage in terms of the different nations? And then obviously when we look at South Africa, what is our competitive advantage? Guys, and then the idea of these financial markets, the reality is that every moment of every hour of every 24-hour day, there is some sort of stock exchange operating somewhere. And the truth is, you can go to bed wealthy and wake up less wealthy based on the realities of how the financial markets operate. So the first one is the drivers of globalization. Any questions around that, guys? Any questions, any concerns, any comments? So please make sure that when you answer the assignment that you give us sufficient theory integrated with the application bits. So give us the key drivers and then link it to what Starlink's role is in Namibia. Again, it's that balance between theory and then integrating that theory with application. Can I move on to the second one? everyone okay? Right. So this one here, I'm not going to have a big discussion. And if you've been in any of my classes previously, you'll recognize this immediately. It is the idea of looking at three pestle factors. Now, just remember that when we look at pestle, we have to look at it within two layers. We have to look at the first layer as it applies globally, and then we need to look at pestle if we are deciding to invest in a particular country, what the impact of the pestle factors are in terms of that particular nation. So, guys, when we talk about this, just make it Namibia. It's easier. We will mark for Namibia. Yes, it's Namibia. It makes no sense, guys. The realities of Namibia are very different to those in South Africa, which are very different to those in Zimbabwe, etc. So please make sure that we keep that Namibia, and we will mark it as Namibia as well, because it makes no sense to say the Southern African market. Are you okay with that, M and Kim?
Yeah, totally fine. So can I post on my announcement for my students after this that we're going to use Namibia, hey?
Yes,
Can I post on my announcement?
that's
I'll
it.
post it for my
Namibia
students.
throughout. Fantastic, and we'll mark with this.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, when you look at pestle, you have to look at the positive and the negative, because the outcome and the decisions you take as a consequence of doing that analysis will be based on the positive and negative. Those of you that have been in my class would have seen this previously. I quite like this layout because it tells us exactly what falls under each of the elements of pestle. So in terms of Namibia, we can look at government policy, and generally, are they pro-labor or are they pro-business? What are the political stability levels like? Have they got free elections? Do they respect the rule of law? Um, Issues in terms of corruption, and I don't know if there's any African nation that is free from corruption. You can look at foreign trade, there are a whole range of those. From an economic perspective, guys, those are very, very specific examples there. So if we look at the question, three macro environmental factors, I would talk broadly in terms of, yeah, the truth be, in terms of this specific example, I would look at elements in politics, I would look at elements in economics, and I would certainly look at elements in technology, because for me, those are the three core factors. You can see in terms of the sub-elements there, what technology is available, what platforms are there, how do we dovetail in terms of those platforms, what are the levels of innovation, and you can work through each of those. You can look at the economic element and you can look at the political element. From where I'm sitting, I would focus on P, I would focus on E, and I'd focus on T. The others, yeah, L maybe, but I generally talk political, legal. I think the truth is your main focus areas would be PET, and then when I talk politics, I also talk legal. Okay, Gaston has shared something there, guys. Oh gosh. Okay, Gaston's found something. I'm not going to look at that one. Guys, any questions? Everyone okay with this one? So it is a macro environmental analysis. Again, in what I'm suggesting, the P, the E, and the T, and link the L to the P. Does anyone want a copy of this pick, or have you got a copy of that pick at this stage?
I think my slides would have something
Jim?
very similar in them, so my students would have access to
Okay.
something very similar.
Okay, wonderful. If
Thank you,
anyone
though.
from my class needs it, we can grab it. Okay, I have shared it previously. Okay, that's wonderful. In terms of the mark allocation, can I spend 2 seconds? Let me look at it now. Right, so if we look at the first bit over there, the mark allocation is here. So, gosh, now I've got this a little bit broad. Let me just make it a little bit smaller. The mark allocation is there. So you can see what we have to allocate in terms of the drivers, and then obviously the fact that we have proper theory supporting our discussion there, and then also the idea of depth and breadth, and then also linking it back to the application. So those are the bits that we will look at in terms of this question. And again, to say I'm going to allocate 5, 4, and 3, I'm not doing that. It really depends on your discussion and your argumentation. Jen, I don't know if that makes any sense. Yeah, you can see there the breakdown there. A maximum of 20, a maximum of 30. So this is really about making sense in terms of whether this is worth going into this particular country. Right. So the second one, deciding to enter Namibia, beginning of June 2024. It talks about a competitive international strategy. Guys, in terms of, sorry, just the previous question, in my slides, the pestle factors are discussed, hold on a second, from slide 17, and there's a heck of a lot of discussion. 17, 18, you can have a glance at all of those, but I would just use that really colorful picture. Right, a real, yeah, there's a lot of discussion there, guys. I would just use my picture that I've shared. In terms of the, and I just need to just make sure that I'm here, that I'm reading right. Yeah, the competitive international strategy. So when we look at our competitive strategy, generally we need to consider two things. What we have in terms of, sorry, no, I'm also looking at the wrong thing because I am fast asleep. My apologies for that. Oh, gosh. Where do I start here? Okay, there it is. Let me just make sure that I have a read of this. Sorry, sometimes the terminology is a little bit overlapping. Competitive international strategy. Hold on. There it is, guys. No. Okay, sorry, guys. It is slide. There it is. A bit confused. My apologies. It is slide 47, 44, 45, 46, 47. We'll talk about which one it is in a second. So when we look at international competitive strategies, there are two factors that we have to consider. We need to look at the idea of cost pressures, and it's all about economies of scale, and it's about whether we have the ability to save money or whether cost isn't important. So if you're selling Bugattis, cost is the last thing from your mind. But when you're selling T-shirts, cost and economies of scale are pretty important factors to consider. In terms of the second one is how much do we have to customize in terms of meeting local requirements? So when we look at those two, they give us these options. So the first one, again, just to say, it is how much pressure is on the business to reduce cost. Again, if you're selling a Bugatti Veyron, there's no pressure, but if you're selling T-shirts, there is significant pressure. And then to what extent do we need to customize, personalize, that's not really the right word, to meet local demand? So in terms of the alternatives that we have available, global strategy, where you have high cost pressures, so it has to be as cheap as possible, and you have low pressures for local responsiveness. If you manufacture socks, I would imagine that would fall nicely into that. In terms of the second one, an international strategy, when there is low cost pressures and also low pressures for local responsiveness. You can essentially focus on making sure that you pay attention to the fact that you can mass produce and sell the mass produced goods at a fairly significant rate. Multi-domestic, guys, where you have to consider the local realities, and cost is not important. And then transnational, where you have to consider both cost and the local responsiveness. Now, this is one of those that we need to talk about, guys, because the first one that it could be, and I'm quite uncomfortable with this one, considering that I lectured this in first semester as well, where it talks about high pressures for local responsiveness and then low cost pressures. To me, that does not perfectly explain what Starlink does. Neither does this. I think, the idea of having an international strategy. And when we look at an international strategy, you don't pay attention to either, so you can charge whatever you want. If we read between the lines, for me, it is this one, the idea that it is important in terms of cost, but also there has to be some sort of element of the local reality. So for me, the transnational strategy might be a better option. I generally will accept most as long as you can argue. Where do you see this one? And I know what the memo says, but I'm not going to talk about the memo. Kim, where do you see this one?
Let me just think about that for a second. Let's go back to the previous slide. Global strategy. Sorry, I've just hit a brain blank. Give me a second and I'll answer that.
Kim can also jump in.
I'm also just checking now. Sorry, I was a little bit late for the session, first of all, but I'm checking.
Guys. Okay, so can I just say, for me, it's this, guys. I think Starlink is about keeping it pretty cost efficient, and we know that the initial investment costs, but also for me, you have to have some element of local customization.
Yeah, sorry, just to jump in, I totally agree with this, because obviously the local responsiveness, sorry, my brain just went blank for a second. I would totally agree with the transnational, because obviously with the local pressure, it has to meet the local demand, the local culture, the local everything. So it's got to meet local. If it's not meeting local, I don't think they'll accept it.
Yeah, so for me, and the one that I was concerned about is that there is a suggestion that it's this. The problem with that, guys, when we look at the idea of multi-domestic, is that we're not concerned about price. And the reality is there's a significant concern, in particular when it comes to data delivery. So for me, I would specifically look at that one there. Okay, a transnational strategy. Guys, you can argue. Can I just say the memo says it's this, but we generally don't pay attention to memos, because I think we also know that sometimes people have their own opinions. But I would focus in this area, that it's about cost, but it's also meeting the realities of the local economy. Any questions, any comments on that? The discussion is there. So the idea of we're trying to keep it as cheap as possible, and again, it's about economies of scale and making sure that we have significant numbers of customers. But also, I think we need to realize that we need to keep it specifically aligned to the realities of the local economy that we're entering.
And also that it's an African economy that we're dealing with as well. I'd also say the fact that it's African and not a European or not an American economy. Obviously, we're not first world like the rest of the world. So obviously, in terms of cost, we would try and keep the cost down as much as possible. I think if you're trying to take it to Europe or to America or to China, it would be totally different. But the fact that it's going into Africa would also be, the costs would be a big one.
So guys, for me, of course, Jenna, whichever way you want to do it, I'll upload it onto our lecturer group, and you can ask Kim or
I think they're already in there, Jenna. You must just check all the slides are in the more resources folder under slides. So just go and check.
I love how Nate is selling my slides for 100 Rand.
Some good money to be made.
No,
Well done, being entrepreneurial.
guys, I'll give it to you for 75. Okay, any questions in terms of that one there? Guys, can I also just say what will determine what you get is what is there. So make sure that you support your choice with proper argument. I mean, it's very similar to what Em and Kim have just said. It's about cost, but it's also about the local reality. Any questions, any concerns around this question overall?
Dr. Henny, I had a few students
don't.
asking me about
Yeah,
what resources they could use. So if you just want to clarify about
okay.
resources, I had a few students ask about what resources they could use that were credible.
So in terms of if you're looking for examples that relate to the Starlink, but it's fine to look at news articles, etc. If you're looking at the realities around Namibia, there are a lot of sites out there, but you can look at sites that come from the FBI has really good resources, and there are a number of global sites. So generally, we're not going to worry about when you look at application stuff for peer-reviewed stuff. But if you're going to write about the theory, if you're going to talk about the theory, it has to be peer reviewed. It has to come from a textbook. It has to come from an article that you would find on Google Scholar. Not that all the articles on Google Scholar are peer reviewed, but generally you're safe going there, or just to go into the local sources, guys, to go look at the library, the electronic library. So whether it's EBSCOhost, etc. So if you're talking about the realities within Namibia, you can use newspaper articles, you can use national sites, etc. You can use international sites. Yeah, you've got to know what you're doing on EBSCO. And those of you that have been in, and I'm sure most of you have, I quite like this idea where I would put in Namibia. Oh, let's just and it's not the best description, and I just put it normally into Google and I type scholarly articles, and generally you get a pretty good return by doing that. If you then want to check whether it's peer reviewed, and you can see there's a significant amount by just doing that. So it's just Google, but adding those two words, and then obviously EBSCOhost as well, and which other elements you're looking at. Okay. Yeah, EBSCO is only bad when you're not doing your searches properly, Nate. So maybe we need to chat about that. I don't think it's that bad, to be honest with you. But this to me is the easy default. It's Google with those two words in it. I don't know if I've answered that question, Em.
Yeah, thank you for going through that. I've just had a few questions, so it's quite nice if they can go back and watch the recording and go through that.
Okay.
So thank you for adding that.
I just quickly am searching this one. I just want to see. I just want to see if I can find this one. Hold on. Yeah. So if we do this, sites like USAID will give you a really good description on that. There are a couple of state government sites. Guys, there are large numbers out there that can give you information on what it is and what it's not about, but also look at Namibia sites. There's also quite a few newspaper articles doing the rounds on Namibia. Yeah, and you can look at investment climate options. I'm looking at this one, and I'm not defaulting to America, but this is an interesting one as well. I'll share this with you, and it talks about potential investment. I'll share this here. Okay, just check that one out as well. Pretty good, guys. There's also the International Competitiveness Report. Hold on, I don't know if they actually make it. Hold on. Just give me a second. Yeah, and it's this one as well you can look at. Hold on, I'll try and plug this in there as well. There's a lot of information out there on Namibia, guys. There's a lot out there that you can actually look at and read around. I just want to see where the other one is. This one. Sorry, this is the one I was looking for as well. This is the World Bank one. I'll share this with you as well. Sorry, guys, do you want me to share these with you, or do you want to rather search yourself? Must let me know that I'm not getting carried away. This is a nice one. The World Bank one is a nice one.
I'm sure students will appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, guys, the last one is really, really good, and you can see the details around that, and economic. You can see the stuff that they go into. Yeah, there are a couple of others. Hold on. This is the last one I'm going to share. Hold on. I'm hoping that I can find this one. Yeah, there it is, guys. Have a glance at that one as well. Okay, there's a lot out there. So when you do your pestle analysis, you can actually support it with evidence and stats from these sites that I've shared. Hold on, I just want to see what else I've got. Yeah, there's a lot out there, guys. Some of it less important than others, but yeah, this trading economics is also a pretty decent site to have in your arsenal. Okay. Any other questions on this one? Can I move on to the second question overall? Okay, let's do it. Apologies. Right, so the second one is particularly around Elon Musk. A pleasure, Ayanda. So in terms of Elon Musk, when we look at my slides, it is Learning Unit 5. And you'll see it starts from about slide 12. I just need to make sure that I do it in the right order. So my apologies if I don't do it in the right order when I'm answering. When we look at the first one there, the idea of, hold on, let me just go back here. So the first one that I'm looking at is transactional transformational leadership, slide 13. So when we look at, so I'm looking at the second part here, I'll talk about the other one now. Transformation leadership or transformative leadership, you'll remember that it's based around the sort of Nelson Mandela type figures who made this massive impression in the world, and were able to change societies, transform societies, and act in a leadership position. In terms of transformative leadership or transformation leadership, we know that transformational leaders, guys, please look at page 426, 12.1. But it's the behavior, it's the ability to attract, it's the ability to pay individual attention, it's the ability to, in terms of Mandela, forgive and forget. You can see how that is used to transform societies, to transform organizations, and plays a very a significant part in terms of what Elon Musk has brought to the organization, not always to the right benefit. Transactional leadership is really about the give and take of leadership. It is what your parents would have done when you were kids. If you want to go out, then you have to clean your room. So the idea is there will be some sort of benefit, but in order to get the benefit, you need to make some sacrifice. So in terms of the transactional leadership, it really is looking at what we want followers to do, but rewarding them when they display particular behaviors. So, yeah, transformational leadership. I don't think there's anything else. Guys, please just look at page 426. I can't remember which table is on there. I don't have my textbook near me. Hold on a second.
It's page 425 to 427. I've just checked my slides.
Oh, thank you so much. You're a star.
425 to 427.
Excellent. I don't even have the right textbook near me. Sorry, guys. I don't know where my textbook is right now. Okay, please have a look at those. And then in terms of the second one there, guys, if we, the first one, strategic, visionary, and managerial leaders.
It's page 428. 428 in the textbook.
428, thank you. It's a bit hickledy-pickledy on my slides. Okay, yeah, so 428 and 429. Guys, in terms of, and they love asking this as an exam question as well. In terms of strategic leaders, the ability to look at the environment, we talk about these individuals as having strategic intelligence, and it's the ability to discern from what other people would consider an insane environment, the idea of what to do in terms of positioning the organization, moving the organization forward, and obviously achieving strategic successes. Managerial leadership is more about making sure that we get things done. These are individuals that would put policies and systems in place to give life to the visionary leaders' idea of the future. And we talk about a vision as being the ambitious future an organization sees for itself. And you need elements of each, because visionary leadership is really about looking at the future and creating their ideal future. Managerial leadership is giving life to it. And strategic leadership is really a combination of those, where you're able to look at the insanity of the environment and use your intelligence to position the organization, to position people to really achieve strategic successes. And then the other one, hold on. Yeah, just be careful in terms of, the question, what leader Elon Musk is. I'm not going to tell you what I think. It doesn't really matter what I think. But mind you, I will share. I think for me, he's a visionary leader. I think he has wonderful ideas, and he surrounds himself with really bright people who can give life to those ideas, which makes him a visionary leader. But again, if you want to argue,
totally agree that he's visionary as well.
Yeah, no, he is visionary. He's created a world that is very different. Yeah, no, he definitely is. I mean, just with Tesla and now with Starlink and other things that he's created. Yeah. Guys, and then just in terms of this, I propose 4 different ways. Be careful when you use the textbook or use my slides from an ethicality perspective. Sorry, and I've got to find the ethics now.
It's on page 441 of the textbook. 441.
441. Okay, I just need to see where it is here. Why can I not find ethics? Apologies. There it is. Okay, guys, so it's slide 28 for me. So Learning Unit 5, slide 28. In terms of ethical practices, be very careful that you use from the textbook, from our slides, things that apply. So you're not going to talk about the King 5 report. You would look at whatever the equivalent is in Namibia. And then the idea of walking the talk, it is also the idea of creating codes of ethics and in your own sort of behavior, reflecting those ethics. And it's about making sure that you align the organization with the legislation and you get people to understand to behave in particular ways in order to keep the organization out of trouble with local governments. Please don't use that. In the past, people have defaulted to that. You have to find what Namibia's equivalent is. Okay, and I don't know what it is, and maybe they use King 5, but or King 4. I'd be very surprised. In terms of good governance, obviously in South Africa, that rests with your board of directors, and it really is the start point and end point of making sure that we look after the interests of our shareholders, but also broadly after our stakeholders. Okay. And that is that, I think. Yeah. Let me just see what else I have here. Guys, yeah, when you've got my slide, you can see the detail around the slides as well.
Would the students need to mention anything about ethics and stuff and corporate governance in terms of Namibia maybe giving back to communities or giving back to the environment or anything like that? Or are we mainly focusing on what ethical practices they would do?
Well, I think when we look at ethics, it encompasses looking after the interests of your stakeholders. So it's about abiding by legislation, it's adhering to legislation, it is making sure that we don't get caught up in corruption and in bribery and in doing business that would be considered illegal. So it really is about the laws of the country. And I wonder what Namibia's equivalent is. Sorry, I'm just going to cheat. And yeah, guys, here is something for you. I hope that I'm not leading. Yeah, there it is. Okay. I don't know if that's going to help at all. Let me just share this with you guys as well. I think the one that I have here might even be better. I don't know if you can get into this one. That should help you in terms of governance and ethics there, guys. Okay, they have something similar to King 4. Here is also a pretty decent one, guys. And you can have a look at that one as well. It looks, yeah, it's very similar to King 4, guys. So I would use the last slide, the last one I've shared with you. But remember, it really is about behaving and behaving in a way that you are promoting the interests of your shareholders, promoting the interests of your stakeholders, and across the entire section of stakeholders. Okay. Yeah, this one is actually very nice, guys. This one is very nice, the last one. Any questions, any comments? You can look at the stock exchange. That's a good point. Guys, have a glance at this one as well. Good point, Gaston. Thank you for that one. Okay. Yeah, no, this one I have is not so great, guys. Right. Any questions, any comments, any concerns at this stage? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Nice, Gaston. I didn't know that. Okay. Thanks, Kim. Yeah, happens, Gaston. Okay, guys, I think everyone has my slides. If there's nothing else, I'm going to call it quits. I will hang around if people want to talk to me outside class. I'll hang around. Kim, thank you so much. Anything from your side, Emily? Anything from your side, Kim?
I'm happy. Thanks, Doc. Yeah, all is good from my side. Thank you so much for an informative session.
Pleasure, guys. Pleasure. All right. People are disappearing.